The scent of imminent rain hung heavy over the manicured lawns of Cypress Grove, a neighborhood where conformity was not just encouraged, but enforced with the zeal of a holy crusade. Leo, was in my driveway, the familiar, slightly greasy smell of gasoline mixing with the damp air. My trusty red generator, old reliable, sat before me, its tank thirsty. Beside it were 2 bright red 5-gallon jerry cans, freshly filled. It was hurricane season in Florida, and after the great 3-day blackout the previous year, I'd learned my lesson. Being prepared wasn't just sensible. It was a quiet act of rebellion in a place that relied on the illusion of perpetual, grid-power perfection. I heard the click-clack of heels on pavement before I saw her, a rhythm that signaled bureaucracy on the move. Diane Forsyth, the HOA's Vice-President of Architectural Control and, by self-appointment, morale, rounded the corner of my property line. She was a woman carved from beige linen and sharp disapproval, her blonde bob a helmet against originality. Her eyes, the color of faded denim, missed nothing. They scanned my truck, the generator, the gas cans, and settled on my face with the warmth of a tax auditor. "Leonard," she began, using my full name as if we were in a courtroom. "A little early for hurricane prep, don't you think? And those containers, they're rather unsightly for daytime storage. The bylaws state all unsightly utilitarian items must be stored in an approved shed or out of sight by 8 a.m. I took a slow breath, wiping my hands on a rag. "Afternoon, Diane. Not storing, just filling. They can go back into the garage as soon as I'm done. Just getting ahead of the rush." She took a step closer, her nose wrinkling slightly at the petrol fumes. "It's the principle. It sets a precedent. If everyone left their preparedness items out, the neighborhood would look like a campsite." She said the words with utter distaste. Her gaze then drifted past me, into my open garage, where my workbench tools and a vintage motorcycle in progress were visible. A tiny muscle twitched in her jaw. Chaos, to her, was anything not featuring wicker furniture and impatience. Duly noted. I said, turning back to the generator, hoping disengagement would signal the end of the conversation. It did not. "Actually, Leonard, my husband, Todd, and I have a situation," she said, her voice shifting to a tone of manufactured camaraderie. "Our lawn service is coming tomorrow to aerate, and their machine is catastrophically low on fuel. They can't possibly do the job without it, and the HOA contract specifies a pristine lawn weekly. It would be a blight on the community if our lot fell behind." I nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. "You seem to have a surplus," she stated, gesturing with a manicured hand toward the 2 full cans. "We'll take one of those. Todd will bring it back eventually." The audacity was so pure, so breathtaking, it momentarily stole my words. She wasn't asking. She was informing me of a requisition. My expensive pre-storm gasoline, acquired after waiting in a 20-minute line at the Costco gas station, was being conscripted for the sake of her lawn's aeration schedule. I forced a smile. "I'm sorry, Diane, but this gas is for my generator, for the storm that's coming. You're welcome to go to the station on Elm. They should still have some." Her smile tightened, becoming a thin, pressed line. "Leonard, don't be difficult. This is for the community. The aesthetic standards benefit everyone, including you. It's a simple neighborly favor." "A neighborly favor is a cup of sugar," I said, my patience thinning. "This is 5 gallons of premium gasoline that cost me over $20 in my time. I'm not giving it away so your grass can breathe easier." The pleasant facade shattered. Her eyes turned to flint. "This is exactly the sort of selfish, non-communal attitude that degrades property values. I am asking you, as a representative of the Cypress Grove Homeowners Association, to contribute to a neighborhood need. And I'm refusing, as a homeowner who pays my dues and doesn't appreciate being shaken down for gas in my own driveway." I picked up a jerry can. "This conversation is over." I turned my back and began walking toward my garage. I heard the rapid tapping on a phone screen. "Fine, we'll do this the official way." I shrugged, stored the can, and came back for the second one. By the time I had closed the garage door, the theatrical wail of a siren pierced the suburban quiet. A single patrol car, white and green, pulled up to the curb. Officer Miller, a man in his late 40s with a tired, seen-it-all demeanor, got out. Diane was already there, talking a mile a minute, her hands fluttering like agitated birds. And he's hoarding fuel, officer, creating a fire hazard. Those containers are not approved for residential display. And now he's refusing to aid a critical neighborhood maintenance project. It's vandalism by negligence. Officer Miller nodded slowly, his eyes meeting mine over her shoulder. He'd been out here before, for a dispute about my excessively vibrant mailbox flag, for a complaint about my truck being commercially sized. It was an F-150. He knew the score. "Afternoon, Leo," he said as he approached, Diane trailing behind him like a vengeful specter. "Ms. Forsythe here has lodged a complaint. Says you've got some gas she needs for HOA business, and you're causing a disturbance." "The only disturbance is the one standing next to you, officer," I said calmly. I was refilling my generator. She demanded I hand over a full 5-gallon can for free. I said no. Now she's called you. "It's not free," Diane hissed. "It's for the association. He is obstructing essential services. I want him cited for creating a public nuisance and theft of community resources." Officer Miller blinked. "Theft? Ma'am, how can he steal his own gas?" "The gas is needed for the community. By withholding it, he's essentially stealing from all of us." Her voice was reaching a piercing register. A few curtains in nearby houses twitched. An audience was gathering. "Officer Miller," I said, my voice level, "are there any laws against owning gasoline? Or refusing to give your private property to an HOA board member for a personal lawn care?" "None that I'm aware of," he sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Ma'am, this is a civil dispute. It's not a police matter." Diane's face flushed a mottled red. This was not following her script. In her world, authority was absolute, and her badge, an HOA name tag, carried the same weight as a police shield. "That is unacceptable," she spat. "He is in blatant violation of Cypress Grove bylaws, sections 12C and 15F, unsightly items and failure to comply with a reasonable request from the board. This constitutes disorderly conduct. I am demanding you place him under arrest." The word hung in the humid air. Arrest. Officer Miller's posture stiffened. His professional patience, worn thin by years of petty calls, finally snapped. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low and firm, "I am not going to arrest a man for not giving you his gasoline. That is not a crime. This ends now." But Diane was in the trenches of her own war, and retreat was not an option. She pulled out her phone again, her fingers stabbing at the screen. "Fine. If you won't do your job, I'll call someone who will. I'm reporting you to your supervisor. And I'm calling the fire marshal. Those containers are illegal. I saw him filling them. That's illegal dispensing. He's a menace." What happened next unfolded with a slow-motion, cinematic inevitability. In her rage, as she gesticulated with one hand, her other hand, holding the phone, swept wildly. It connected with the spout of the second jerry can, which I had left next to the generator. The plastic cap wasn't fully tightened. The can toppled, not with a dramatic explosion, but with a heavy, glugging thud. A stream of amber liquid, reeking of hydrocarbons, poured onto Diane Forsythe's pristine white sneakers and the immaculate concrete of my driveway, spreading in a swift, slick tide toward her. She shrieked, a pure, unadulterated sound of horror. Leaping backward as if the gasoline were acid, her shoes were soaked. The hem of her beige linen trousers darkened. The pungent smell enveloped her. Time froze. Officer Miller's eyes went wide. My own anger dissolved into a kind of stunned disbelief. Diane looked down at her ruined shoes, at the spreading pool of fuel that had, in fact, become a genuine fire hazard and environmental spill, all by her own hand. Her head snapped up, her finger pointing a trembling accusation at me. You did that on purpose. You assaulted me with hazardous materials. Officer, now will you arrest him? Look at what he's done." But the spell was broken. The absurdity had reached its zenith. From across the street, old Mr. Henderson, who had been pretending to weed his flower bed, called out, "Oh, For heaven's sake, Diane, you knocked it over yourself. We all saw it. A few other neighbors, emboldened, murmured in agreement. The curtain twitchers were now porch standers. Officer Miller found his voice, all traces of weariness replaced by crisp command. Ma'am, you need to step back. Right now. This is now a hazardous materials incident. Leo, do you have kitty litter or absorbent? In the garage. I said, already moving. You're helping him? Diane wailed, smelling of high-octane fuel and humiliation. No, ma'am, I'm mitigating the hazard you created, Officer Miller said. He keyed his radio. Dispatch! I need a fire department non-emergency response for a fuel spill, approximately 5 gallons. Residential driveway. He gave my address. The next 20 minutes were a blur of beautiful, poetic justice. A fire truck arrived, lights flashing silently, drawing every single resident out of their homes. Firefighters in bulky gear spread absorbent granules over my driveway, creating a comical, stark white stain on the gray concrete. A formal report was filed. The lead firefighter, a woman with kind eyes and zero tolerance for nonsense, explained the laws regarding fuel storage to Diane in simple, blunt terms. Ma'am, these containers are perfectly legal, but causing a spill by mishandling them? That can carry a fine. Diane stood there, a beige island of fury marinated in gasoline, surrounded by the official consequences she had so desperately tried to summon upon me. Todd eventually skulked over, looking mortified, and led his sputtering wife away. Her final, his threat, the board will hear about this, fines, liens, was lost in the rumble of the fire engine. The aftermath was a thing of beauty. Officer Miller's report clearly stated the spill was caused by the complainant, the HOA board. Even the ones who tolerated Diane wanted nothing to do with the liability or the ridicule. A formal notice arrived a week later. Complaint dismissed. Please ensure all fuel is stored safely. It was signed by the HOA president, with a post-it note attached in different handwriting that read, Sorry about that, Barb. But the true victory was quieter. Neighbors I'd only ever nodded at started waving. Mr. Henderson brought me a beer the next weekend. The woman from 3 houses down, whose unauthorized butterfly garden had been a previous target of Diane's, sent over a plate of cookies. A subtle shift had occurred. The fear of the HOA Karen had been punctured, not by a grand confrontation, but by her own spectacular, self-inflicted downfall. The storm came a week later. The winds howled, the power lines went down, and Cypress Grove plunged into a dark, humming silence. And from my house, a solitary beacon of light, and the steady, reassuring putter of old reliable Shone. In my garage, the second can of gas sat, full and ready. Across the street, the Forsyth house was dark and silent. I heard through the grapevine that their emergency preparedness consisted of scented candles and a profound sense of entitlement, which, as it turned out, was not a viable power source. As I sat on my porch, listening to the generator and sipping a cold drink, I watched the rain cleanse my driveway. The last traces of the absorbent and the drama were washed away. The scent of rain had finally overpowered the smell of gasoline and desperation. The lesson was clear. You can't always prepare for a Karen, but with a little luck and their own spectacular hubris, sometimes they prepare their own comeuppance. And that, I thought with a smile, was more satisfying than any generator's hum.